On December 14, 2012, 6-year-old Jesse Lewis wrote "I love you" with his finger in the frost on his mom's car. Just hours later, he would be killed in the Sandy Hook school shooting, but died a hero. Before he was fatally shot, Jesse saved the lives of 9 of his classmates by yelling for them to run while the shooter reloaded. In 2004, French authorities found a fully functional movie theater deep in the Paris catacombs, complete with seating, projectors, and a full bar. When police returned a few days later, the entire setup was gone and a note was left reading, "Do not try to find us." Just last year, a woman with type 1 diabetes died after opting for slap therapy instead of taking her insulin. She apparently had a lifelong fear of needles and grew tired of pricking herself, so she went to an alternative healer who treated her with the traditional Chinese method of slap therapy, during which the patient slaps themselves in order to expel poisonous waste from the body. She died on the 4th day of treatment due to not taking her insulin, while the alternative healer received 10 years in prison. Morbid Facts, Part 420. In 2009, Florida woman Carol Bryan received facial fillers that were mistakenly injected into the wrong spot, causing her forehead to swell up so severely that she went blind in one eye. Carol went from a fashion model to a recluse, refusing to leave her home for years due to the monstrous appearance of her face. Medical students in the UK were recently left astonished after the autopsy of a 78-year-old man. He unknowingly lived his whole life with 3 dicks, an extremely rare condition known as supernumerary penile formation. Polish adventurer Alexander Doba kayaked solo across the Atlantic 3 times, once at the age of 70. 4 years later, he reached the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, sat down for a break, fell asleep, and never woke up. In 2009, 2 women bet 28-year-old Russian man Sergei Tuganov $4,300 that he couldn't last 12 hours in bed with them. He won the bet, but later suffered a fatal heart attack after consuming an entire bottle of Viagra. These are some morbid facts about the WWE. This photo shows The Undertaker looking down at medical staff after chokeslamming Mick Foley through the roof of Hell in a Cell. The 16-foot fall was completely unplanned and left Foley with bruised ribs, a dislocated jaw, and internal bleeding. The Undertaker was certain he'd just killed the man, but Foley managed to get up and even complete the match. During a 1999 pay-per-view event, Owen Hart plummeted 78 feet to his death when the harness lowering him to the ring snapped. Former Japanese wrestler Hayabusa is considered to be a pioneer of high flying in the sport, but his career ended abruptly in 2001 after a botched backflip left him paralyzed from the neck down. The world record for alcohol consumption was set by pro wrestler Andre the Giant. The 7'4" monster once drank 156 beers in one sitting, which is just under 15 gallons. Once considered a wrestling legend, Chris Benoit murdered his wife and son before taking his own life in 2007. After multiple tests were conducted, it was revealed that his head was so damaged from concussions that he had the brain of an 85-year-old with a severe form of dementia, perhaps contributing to his horrific behavior. Here's a photo of some children who were part of the 1980s Australian cult called The Family. The group was run by Anne Hamilton Byrne, who believed she was Jesus, and illegally adopted 28 children before raising them in total isolation. All were given the surname Hamilton Byrne, the same clothing, and the same haircut and dyed hair color. The kids were imprisoned, routinely drugged with LSD, and brainwashed into believing that Anne was their real mother. They were denied nearly all access to the outside world and subjected to a strict discipline that included starvation diets and frequent beatings. During all of this, the children were told that they were part of a chosen group of superior beings who would survive an impending apocalypse and eventually rebuild and lead the new world. The compound was eventually raided in 1987 after a member escaped and blew the whistle on the cult, but Anne managed to avoid jail time, only paying a measly $5,000 fine due to a lack of concrete evidence. Here are some morbid facts about Robin Williams. This was the last photo taken of Robin Williams on October 8, 2014, the day before he would take his own life via asphyxiation. Robin's death changed the conversation around suicide and mental health. The day after he died, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline received the highest number of calls in its history. In the 4 months that followed his death, the suicide rate increased by 10% across the United States. But what exactly was it that sent Robin over the edge? While filming Night at the Museum 3, Williams struggled with constant panic attacks and often had trouble remembering even one line. He was told by multiple doctors that he didn't have Alzheimer's, dementia, or schizophrenia and was simply diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. But but his autopsy later revealed that he'd been suffering from a severe form of dementia and lost more than 40% of the dopamine neurons in his brain. Experts were completely stunned by how much the disease had ravaged his system. One doctor said, "This was about as devastating a form of Lewy body dementia as I've ever seen. It really amazed me that Robin could even walk or move at all." Morbid Facts, Part 408. American actor and model John Eric Hexum was once seen as the next big thing in Hollywood due to his charming looks, charisma, and radio voice. But in 1984, he died on the set of the TV show Cover Up after accidentally discharging a blank cartridge into his skull. Hexum had apparently been playing Russian roulette with a prop gun during a break in filming, and the muzzle blast caused enough blunt force trauma to fracture a piece of his skull that propelled into his brain. Serial killer Israel Keyes went the extra mile to ensure that he would never be detected. He had no preferred victim type and never killed in the same area twice. For one murder, he flew to Chicago and drove 1,000 miles all the way to Vermont in a rental car, then used a murder kit he'd hidden there 2 years prior. When shopping on his murder trips, he always kept his phone turned off and only ever paid in cash. But Keyes was caught in 2012 after using a victim's credit card when he didn't have any cash on hand. Initially known for her ridiculously large implants, German model and actress Martina Big says she identifies as black. She's had 23 breast augmentation procedures, as well as numerous perma-tanning treatments to darken her skin, eyebrows, and eye color. The woman says she was baptized as a real African woman while living in Kenya and hopes to build bridges between races. During a camping trip in June of 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Lloyd Martin was last seen hiding behind a bush, planning to jump out and scare his father before he completely vanished. Despite the largest search in Great Smoky Mountains National Park history, no trace of him was ever found. While serial killer Edmund Kemper was serving time in prison, he participated in the Blind Project, a volunteer program where he recorded audiobooks for the visually impaired. Kemper spent over 5,000 hours in the recording booth, as his deep voice was apparently well suited for narration. In 1978, Amos Atkinson held an entire restaurant of 30 people hostage while armed with a shotgun, demanding that his criminal friend be released from prison. But the situation took an unexpected turn when the man's mother stormed the building in her pajamas and hit Atkinson over the head with her handbag while telling him to stop being so stupid. Atkinson then surrendered peacefully. With Casey Anthony now on TikTok, let's recap why she's so awful. In July of 2008, Cindy Anthony reported her 2-year-old granddaughter Kaylee missing, claiming she hadn't seen her in more than a month. The toddler's mother, Casey, had told various lies about Kaylee's whereabouts, before eventually admitting that she hadn't seen her daughter for weeks, during which time she'd been out partying. 5 months later, Kaylee's remains were found near the Anthony home with duct tape around the skull, and Casey was charged with first-degree murder. During her trial, prosecutors alleged that Casey wished to free herself from parental responsibilities and killed her daughter by drugging her and duct taping her nose and mouth. The defense otherwise argued that Casey simply suffered from pathological lying and that Kaylee's death was accidental. To the disbelief of millions across the country, Casey was soon acquitted of the murder charge, but found guilty on providing false information to law enforcement. She was released after serving just 3 years in prison and remains free to this day. It's worth noting that years after her trial, it was revealed that the day before her daughter died, Casey Anthony had searched foolproof suffocation methods on Mozilla Firefox. But police overlooked this crucial evidence because they only checked her search history from Internet Explorer. In the past year, Casey has reportedly been having an affair with a father of 2, ruining his marriage of 20-plus years. Upon being confronted about the home wrecking, Casey reportedly responded, "I'm living the life I want." Morbid Facts, Part 355. In 1977, Muhammad Ali endured quite the beating in his 15-round fight with Ernie Shavers, one of the hardest-hitting boxers in history. Ali suffered so much brain damage that his speaking rate was permanently slowed down by 16% after the fight. Geoffrey Hudson was a courtier for King Charles I of England who was only 18 inches tall. After being insulted by an average-sized man in 1644, Geoffrey challenged him to a duel with pistols. His opponent came to the duel only armed with a water gun as a joke. But Hudson didn't take too kindly to this and fatally shot him in the forehead with a real gun. During a drug-fueled rampage in 2001, the Prince of Nepal killed 9 members of his family, including the King and Queen, at Kathmandu's National Palace. The prince then turned the gun on himself in an attempt to take his own life, then fell into a coma. As heir to the throne, the crown prince escaped any charges and was instead declared king of Nepal, but he only reigned for 3 days in the hospital before being declared brain dead and unfit to serve. Hocus Pocus, Sarah Jessica Parker played a witch who was executed during the Salem witch trials. Years later, the actress discovered that her 10th great-grandmother was actually accused of witchcraft in Salem 1692. For the first half of his life, Hungarian man Adam Rayner was barely 4 feet tall as a result of dwarfism. But during his 20s, a pituitary tumor caused a dramatic growth spurt, and by age 33, he was 7'2". He's the only person in recorded history to have been both a dwarf and a giant. In 2001, Jason and Jenny Cairns Lawrence were on vacation in New York City when the World Trade Center was struck on 9/11. 4 years later, in 2005, they went on vacation in London when 4 suicide bombers attacked the London bus network, killing 52 people. Then in 2008, they were in Mumbai when the city was once again attacked by 10 different terrorists who killed nearly 200 people. All 3 tragedies were the worst terrorist attacks in history for each of those countries. And now Jason and Jenny just stay home. Never Tell Me the Odds, Part 37. While filming the final scene of the movie Kingpin, where Bill Murray's character bowls 3 strikes in a row, Bill Murray actually did bowl 3 strikes in a row. His celebration along with the crowd's roaring applause were both genuine reactions. Enzo Ferrari, the founder of the Ferrari company, died on August 14, 1988. Just 1 month later, on October 15th, Arsenal soccer player Mesut Ozil was born. Famous Austrian composer and painter Arnold Schoenberg had extreme triskaidekaphobia, a fear of the number 13. He ended up dying on Friday the 13th at the age of 76. 7 plus 6 equals 13. In 1913, a 12-year-old black girl named Sarah Rector was given land deemed unsuitable for farming. But it turned out to be rich with oil, and she became a millionaire overnight. She was known as the richest colored girl in the world, and Oklahoma legislation even made an effort to have her legally declared white. Never Tell Me the Odds, Part 35. While filming for Blade Trinity, Jessica Biel was instructed to shoot an arrow directly at the camera that was more than 60 feet away. It was protected by plexiglass except for a tiny 2x2 inch square in front of the lens, which Biel managed to hit with a direct bullseye, thus destroying the $300,000 camera. When Don Carcos fought in World War II, he was hit with shrapnel and blinded in his right eye. While working in a barn 64 years later, a horse headbutted him in the exact same spot. The man was thrown into the wall with force, but his vision was suddenly restored. The shadow of this sign in Devon, England, closely resembles a person being hanged. Coincidentally, it's located near a spot called Dead Man's Cross, where criminals were hanged from a gallows in the 13th century. In the year 2000, Kevin Hines jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge due to mental illness and immediately regretted it as he was falling. He broke many bones but miraculously survived because a sea lion was bumping him up from below and keeping his head above the water. Now Kevin is a suicide prevention speaker. In 2016, Star Trek actor Anton Yelkin died in a freak accident at the young age of 27. After pulling into his driveway in his Jeep Grand Cherokee, Yelkin went to check his locked gate for mail when the car suddenly rolled back down the driveway and pinned him against a pillar connected to the gate. It's unknown how long it took for the actor to pass, but he was found dead by friends hours after he failed to arrive at rehearsal, and the official cause of death was blunt traumatic asphyxia. Yelkin's particular car model had a known design flaw that confused drivers about whether it was properly in park, and was later recalled due to faulty gear shifters. If you think you have high cholesterol, this guy will make you feel a lot better, or should I say, a lot butter. A Florida man in his 40s followed an extreme carnivore diet for 8 months, consuming nothing but beef, butter, and cheese. He often ate entire sticks of butter and several pounds of cheese each day, causing his total cholesterol to skyrocket to over 1,000 milligrams per deciliter, while anything over 200 is considered high. As a result, he developed painless yellow cholesterol nodules on his palms, elbows, and the soles of his feet. Despite this, the patient said he felt great following the diet and was able to lose weight while significantly improving his energy levels and mental clarity. Morbid Facts, Part 486. During a trip to Paris in 2007, Prince Harry had his driver go through the same tunnel that his mother Princess Diana died in, at the same speed her car was going at the time, as he was trying to find closure for her death. He later described the attempt as ill-conceived, saying it only brought him more pain as it was just a regular tunnel that nobody should have ever died in. James Hemming, the man who introduced mac and cheese to the United States, served as a slave to Thomas Jefferson and took his own life at the young age of 36 after years of suffering from severe alcoholism. Just last year, a 27-year-old model from New York City shot and killed her husband before turning the gun on herself. It was later revealed that she did it to prevent him from finding out that she cheated on him, which would have resulted in their divorce. In 2022, college wrestlers Kendall Cummings and Brad Lowry were hiking in the woods near Yellowstone when Lowry was suddenly attacked by a grizzly bear. Kendall yelled and threw rocks at the bear to no avail, so he decided to jump on its back. This allowed Lowry to escape and get help while Kendall wrestled the bear until it ran off. Despite several deep wounds, both men were rescued and survived. Morbid Facts, Part 443. Macho Man Randy Savage died from a massive heart attack while driving with his wife, as an autopsy later found his coronary artery to be 90% blocked. Just a few days before he died, Randy had a routine checkup with his doctor who suggested a heart scan, which would have easily detected the fatal blockage, but Randy decided to put it off until his next visit. Known as the Meteor, this was the result of 5 floors of the World Trade Center being compressed together when the towers collapsed on 9/11. It's not known if there are human remains inside. Virginia Giuffre became one of the most prominent victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell when she fearlessly accused Epstein and Prince Andrew of repeatedly sexually assaulting her when she was a teenager in the early 2000s. But just today, the 41-year-old mother of 3 reportedly posted on Instagram claiming she only has 4 days to live after her car was struck by a school bus. Along with an image of her appearing badly bruised, Virginia wrote, "This year has been the worst start to a new year. I won't bore anyone with the details, but I think it's important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you driving 110 kilometers per hour, that no matter what your car is made of, it might as well be a tin can. I've gone into kidney renal failure and they've given me 4 days to live. I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time." The post has left people asking many questions, with some believing it to be a sick April Fool's joke or a cover-up for the fact that she was actually murdered. Morbid Facts, Part 373. The photo on the right shows a Houston police officer reacting outside the home where Andrea Yates drowned her 5 children in 2001. She started by holding 3 of her boys underwater in her bathtub until they stopped struggling. She then drowned her 6-month-old Mary, whom she left floating in the tub. Her last living child, Noah, soon walked in and asked what was wrong with Mary, then ran when he realized what was going on. But Yates quickly caught up to the 7-year-old and drowned him as well. Afterwards, she laid the lifeless bodies of her children together in her bed. She then called the police, repeatedly saying she needed an officer but refusing to say why. During the trial, the defense argued that Yates was severely mentally ill and not in control of her actions during the murders. She was in a deeply delusional state, believing she needed to murder her children to prevent them from going to hell. In 2006, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed to a high-security mental hospital in Texas where she remains to this day. Here are some morbid facts about Martin Luther King. When MLK's grandmother died when he was 12 years old, he blamed himself and tried to take his own life. King would end up suffering from severe bouts of depression throughout his life, even though he was never officially diagnosed. MLK died when he was only 39 years old, but an autopsy found that he had the heart of a 60-year-old, likely due to stress. After King was killed in 1968, his funeral was held at Morehouse College in Atlanta. A small group of students were chosen to be ushers for his funeral, and one of them was Samuel L. Jackson. King's own family publicly supported James Earl Ray's efforts for a retrial. They didn't think he actually assassinated MLK and fully believed it was the US government instead. King's mother Alberta was also killed 6 years after her son was assassinated. She was fatally shot by a 23-year-old black man who thought that black civil rights activists and ministers were evil. The man yelled, "You are serving a false god," and shot Alberta with 2 handguns while she was playing on an organ during a church service in Atlanta. Dr. Dre's younger half-brother, Tyree Crayon, met a violent and mysterious end in 1989 at just 21 years old. He was reportedly killed during a street altercation in Compton where he suffered a broken neck. But despite Dre's fame, Tyree's case was never solved, and very little information about the case has ever been released. Some reports suggest records may have been lost after the troubled Compton Police Department was disbanded years later, leaving his death forever shrouded in uncertainty. To this day, Dre has spoken about the deep emotional scar left by his brother's murder. In 2013, a Virginia man accidentally left his phone recording during a routine colonoscopy, only to later discover chilling audio of the medical staff mocking and humiliating him while he was unconscious. The anesthesiologist was caught calling him names, joking about giving him syphilis, and even plotting to cover up potential mistakes by blaming the patient. Outraged, the man sued, and in 2015, a jury awarded him $500,000 in damages.